It's me, Chucky. My mommy is the best. Super mom, love you much. She helps mommy. It makes my stack. Go get go stack. I just might go back. You wait for the show. Brush. Get ready for it's super scary. Not super strong.
Welcome to Season 6. I am your host, Supermom Robin Stoltman, and today I have my guest, Michelle.
Dosanjh-Johal.
Thank you for that, Michelle. I appreciate it. She is the author of The Mindful Warrior's Way, where she uses her teaching expertise and life experience to craft courses on resilience building for adults and neurodiverse adolescents. Her powerful story revolves around the extreme challenges navigated with her children, including autism, mosaic Turner syndrome, open heart surgery, and psychosis. These challenges led her back to finding self-love and healing through poetry and later the creation of her business. Having the benefit of teaching social and emotional learning, she began to examine the research-based principles that were creating resilience in her own life and other strategies she had been utilizing to create the FAST, F-A-S-T, the framework for resiliency.
Mhm.
She now helps others navigating extreme chaos to make stress their bitch. That
That's
sounds
right.
good to me. I'm just saying. I would love to learn how to do that one.
Yeah,
Thank
let's
you
get
so
into it.
much.
No, thank you for
Yeah.
having me. And you're not kidding. You are definitely Superman, mom. I'm like, hats off to you, super mom, superwoman.
Well, my
With your
kids, well, I
yeah.
appreciate it. My kids had asked me if I'm Wonder Woman. I'm like, no, I'm not Wonder Woman, but some days I wonder where some of my stuff is at. 'Cause they're good at that one, but
It's kind
yeah.
of funny that you say that because my friends actually bought me a Wonder Woman costume at one point. Because I get the same, not because I have 8 children, but I've got just got the 2, but with so many challenges that we've navigated, and so they bought me a Wonder Woman costume. I'll send it your way.
That sounds good to me, because yeah. Some days I wonder, like, how am I doing it? That's why I said, like, that's the number one question I keep getting asked is, like, how am I doing it? And
Yeah,
then, like, your own framework for resiliency. How did you
yeah.
come up with that
Well,
FAST framework?
that's interesting that you say that that's the number one question you get, because that was the question I would get all the time with so many challenges that we were navigating. And in order to, before I get into, the framework, I think people just really need to understand the intensity of the tribulations that we were going through. So my son was diagnosed with autism quite young. And then my daughter was diagnosed as well a little bit later on. The doctor, had kind of missed it. So she's high functioning, but I saw similarities with some of her behaviors and my son. And so the doctor had initially missed it in her. But I have to say, the high functioning autism was not a huge issue at all. She was, she was figuring everything out along the way. It was her health that started to present the biggest challenges. And when she was 11 years old, God bless this doctor that kind of figured it out. When she was 11, her doctor became suspicious, did this blood test, and it comes back positive for something called mosaic Turner syndrome. I can tell that you didn't even know what that was when
No,
you were
I
reading it.
don't.
It's because it's very rare. It's a rare health disorder that affects 1 in around 2,500 females. And all it is, and it's not, genetic. It's not as if she inherited this illness. It was just a fluke of her chromosomes as she was developing. And so some of her X chromosomes correctly formed, XX, and then some of them are just 1X, which unfortunately led to a whole slew of health issues. So one of the major issues she ended up with, besides hormones and needing growth hormone injections, because I just thought she was a short kid. Turns out she had stopped growing. Yeah, and then she needs estrogen now and progesterone. She's just turned 20 now, so she's not so young anymore. But she had a heart condition, and if this doctor hadn't run this test, it would have been fatal for her. So her heart was in need of surgery. And so at 15, she had full on open heart surgery. Yeah. And then at 17, she ends up with, COVID triggers ulcerative colitis so severe that she is again needing blood transfusions. She's in the hospital and she missed 3 months of her grade 12 school year. And now they're finding all this correlation between the gut and the mind. So the scariest thing that ended up happening, and I didn't even get to my son at 11 being diagnosed with a pretty serious mood disorder as well. But the scariest thing that happened was it was December 22nd, 23rd is when we ended up in the hospital that night, but 22nd of 2023. And she woke up a different kid. So I have to preface this. She was a kid who is kind, compassionate, gentle, would never, say boo or complain or let alone, get aggressive. And suddenly she wasn't even herself. I don't know. It was like I didn't know who this person was, and my husband just thought, well, maybe she's just tired of being sick and maybe she's finally rebelling, but it just wasn't it wasn't in her nature to act this way. One moment she would be throwing things and raging, and then the next moment she was laughing maniacally and like trying to eat her cereal bowl. Like something was seriously wrong. So I took her in to the doctor finally, and for that within, by that night. And the neurologist thought she had a brain infection and they thought that she had delirium. So they ran test after test. Unfortunately, or I don't know, unfortunately, but that was not what it was. And it took about a year and they were putting her on medication after medication. It wouldn't work. She had become suicidal. It was rough. Yeah, it was rough. And when I was going through a lot of these tough times, there was one thing that I would focus on as a mom that would pull me out of these really dark times. And that was my love for them. I would just think about how much I loved them, and this love that I had for them would pull me out, of this darkness again and again and again. Yeah. And to come to what we were talking about, I started to review what was it that I was doing that was helping me to be resilient through these incredibly challenging times. And that's when I realized, I put together the framework. And I started to kind of like you said, you've been trying to be more mindful of, what is it that gives you the capacity to be as resilient as you are. I was starting to be mindful of all the practices I'd put in place. And I'm a big nerd too, right? So I was, yeah, self-proclaimed nerd. I love learning, and I love learning about all the research on mental health and everything that's out there. And so I put together a framework of all the things that I had been utilizing. And it's how to feel better fast, F.A.S.T, and to make stress your bitch. So that's kind of how it all came about. But yeah, I just felt like you might need to understand when I say in trials and tribulations, there were really serious things that we have been navigating and we continue to navigate. Yeah.
And I appreciate that too, because then like everybody's challenges are so different.
Mm-hmm.
And then to me, it's still mind boggling. I'm just saying that some people think that their challenge that they're going through is like this major thing because they catastrophize so well.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm like, if you really stop and think about it, you take a look at it, your situation is not as bad as like what you perceive it to be. And it could be like your case where like you have a daughter that's going through open heart surgery.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like and she's only 14, you said?
Yeah, she was just turned 15 at the time.
Okay,
Yeah.
so just turned 15.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, I have never had to go through that. But then there's other people that would take something else and then it's just still like, to me, like it's mind boggling. It's like something that's not so dramatic
Yeah.
or traumatic, they make it out to be this big thing. And it's like, no, like 14 or 15, that's huge. That's
Yeah.
something as a mother I would never want to deal with.
Yeah.
I mean, like,
No.
I'm sure you didn't want to deal with it. I mean, like,
Exactly.
sure, it wasn't on your, this is what I want to do as a mother to-do list. It was on the, I just want to keep my child healthy, happy. Like,
Hmm.
this is not was on my to-do list.
Yes,
You know,
exactly.
that's
Exactly.
horrible for you having to deal with that and your daughter at the same time. And I'm sure it was hard. You said you have a son as well that's on the autism.
Yeah, autism spectrum, and he's also got a very serious mood disorder as well. And you're right, Robin. Perception is everything, and
It
perception is
is.
key, right? And how we choose to see things, whether we want to make ourselves a victim or not, it all has to do with your mindset. And that's part of the T in my framework is you can transform through your mindset because your mindset
Yes.
is so incredibly powerful, right? Even I can
Mm-hmm.
sit here and I could make myself a victim out of all of these circumstances. But the one thing I refused to do was to sit here and feel sorry for myself. My children needed a strong mother and they need me to be healed and they need me to be well. So I'm going to get teary eyed here, but I need to be the best mom that I could be and take care of myself so I could be the best for them, you know? And so it's all interlinked. It's not selfish, it's self-care. Yeah. And it's hard, I guess, and you probably feel the same way. It's hard as mothers to even put ourselves at an equal level as our children, you
Yeah.
know? It's so hard because we do everything for our kids, but I'm working on it because I'm realizing their mother is important too. And the more I heal myself and the more I use these strategies and the more I take care of myself, then the better I am for them. But yes, it starts with your mindset, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it very much does. And that's one of the things that I've noticed, like when I took my hypnosis training, it's like I was unaware at the time how much stuff that I was creating, like all the bad in my life. And,
Mm,
because it's like the talk therapy or the traditional ways, they're
mm-hmm.
all focused on, well, you get to blame this, you get to blame that. And it's really like blame and talk that creates more of that same problem. But it's like the reality is yeah, I can talk about how I'm a victim of the sexual abuse. I can talk about how I'm a victim of this thing and that thing. And I've got a lot of things I could say I'm a victim of.
Right.
But
Yeah.
I don't want to be like that because that's what a
Right.
lot of people already are. And then they want to
Yeah.
keep blaming and shaming. And it's like, go look at yourself in the mirror. You're the
Yeah.
reason why you are in this position.
Yeah.
As much
Yeah.
as I want to blame, it doesn't really do anybody any good. And then when you don't want to forgive, the amount of people I've met that don't want to forgive, I'm like, you're the exact reason why you've got the health problems because the body
Exactly.
keeps
Yes.
score. Like it
Yes.
always knows
Yeah.
what you're willing to do and what you're willing not to
Yeah.
do. So it's
Yeah.
like we were talking about like that resiliency of having your daughter and then your son at the same time. I'm like, I've got one that has autism, but I don't know where he's
Yeah.
exactly at.
Mm.
Like he can do some of the stuff on his own. Like I don't know where they would put him. The doctor just said he's somewhere on the spectrum. But I mean, like, there's challenges with him that I have.
Mhm.
And then the other one that just got diagnosed with ADHD and the ODD, I'm like, okay, this is making things, I'm already aware that there was something that was different, but it's
Mhm.
like that's two of the eight that's got issues.
Mhm.
But even in that, I'm like, it's one of those struggles as a parent. Like the struggle for me is how do I take and do what I want to do? Because, like what you said, it's the self care piece. How do
Mhm.
I grow this business into where I see it going while my kids are still little? Because I'm doing it while my kids are little. I'm not waiting. And it's like, I have no roadmap. Like, literally, like, there's so many people that wait until after their kids are out of the home and then they start their business. But I'm like, I want to do this now because my
Mhm.
why is literally I don't want my kids to ever have to suffer through anything I've ever gone through. Like
Yeah.
that's my bigger why. Like even this
Right.
morning, like going through the steps, I'm like, I don't want to have to take in and have my kids go through anything I've gone through. So it's like I'm
Right.
running so hard away from that.
Yeah.
But then, like you said, there's that self care piece. Because if
Yeah.
I don't take care of me, who
Yeah.
will?
Yeah.
Nobody.
Exactly. Self-care is so important. But here's the other thing.
Yeah.
There's going to be certain things that come your way and that come your children's way, like you've already said. You're noticing autism, ODD, ADHD, and when these things are there, of course, no parent. Of course, we all want to protect our kids. We don't want any of these
Yes.
things. I mean, we would take it on ourselves if we could, but we can't. That's not the way of the universe. It is not the way it works, and so a big part of what we need to do is to learn to accept and surrender to the things that we cannot change. And that ends up bringing us some peace and bringing us and giving us the energy that we can, then move forward with. Otherwise, when you're stuck in that resistance, it's like, it's like making a fist, right? It's like, oh, I don't want this. I don't want this. There's no peace in a fist, right? There's no peace here.
There's
But
also no flow.
yeah, exactly. And so when we let go and we have to accept the things that are there, they're already, God's already put them there. The universe is whatever you want, terminology you use, it's there. And when we do that, there's a gift on the other side, and the gift is peace, right? And when you have some peace, that's part of my self-care, because now I have the energy to move forward as a mother, because I'm not sitting here in suffering. I'm not sitting here and suffering and resistance going, oh, but I don't want this for my kids. I don't want this, because it's already here, right? It's already here.
Yeah, you don't get the
Deal
choice.
with it, right? Yeah, exactly. And so there was a moment when my daughter was back in the emergency for the third time, emergency room. And so here we are, and she's now trying to run away from the hospital. They're putting her in restraints, and she's suicidal. Like it was really extreme. And somehow this kid who was usually so gentle and so calm would get the energy to just like break free out of these restraints, and she'd be running away. So they had to put us in this room. Yeah, and it was like a prison cell. Okay. So it was this room with these cold concrete gray walls. She had one mattress on the ground, a steel toilet, and I didn't know if I was going to lose her. I didn't know what was going to happen, but I had no choice. So I surrendered in that moment, right? And I remember she was sitting there. She was actually lying there on the mattress, and I sat there next to her. And I just kind of gave it back to God. I said, well, if this is what you've given us, then I guess this is what I have to deal with. And I surrendered it. And in that moment of releasing the burden, there was a wave of peace. And this is something we can all find, this peace, right? And we all deserve it, right? You deserve it. Everyone listening deserves this peace. And a lot of that peace comes from surrendering and accepting the things you can't change, and then focusing your energy on that which you can change. So that's the A and the S part of my framework, is to accept and to surrender. Yeah.
No, I love that because, yeah, that is very true. It's like a lot of us just want that inner peace.
Yeah. Right.
I mean, like that's, like when I'm thinking for like the business aspect of it,
Mm-hmm.
even it's like to me, I'm like, can a person really just sell the inner peace? And I'm like, well, I don't know, but it's like to me, inner peace is something that everybody wants, but I think they just don't know how to get that.
Yeah.
Like to come to that conclusion, and it's really like what you just said. It's about accepting, releasing, and just letting go,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and just
Yeah.
being okay with that.
Yeah, that was a huge part of my piece. And I really do feel like, and Eckhart Tolle talks about this quite a bit, about how suffering is in the resistance, right? It's when we're constantly resisting what is, but what is already here. You can't, change the moment. It's already here. Like her illness was already, her Turner syndrome was already there. Their autism was there, and here's the thing. I'm not saying that you can't heal from certain illnesses, right? I'm actually doing a lot of research about healing and how people have managed to heal and what kinds of tools they used, right? And in fact, one of the things that they all have in common, a commonality throughout all of their stories, is they all learned how to reduce their stress levels, which is a start with my program, right?
Yeah.
However, when we come to, and I have to say this too, I have not yet found one story of serious mental illness where it could spontaneously heal without the help of medication. And so I think a huge part of my mission is we need to stop shaming people who need medication for their mental health and see it the same way as we would a diabetic who has diabetes and needs insulin because their body isn't creating insulin. We're not
Yeah.
going to shame them for taking insulin. So we need to stop shaming the people who need medication for bipolar or extreme depression or psychosis, when their mind, the neurotransmitters are off, right? Maybe it's too much dopamine
Yeah.
or whatever it is that's going on. And we need to stop shaming that because unfortunately, a lot of people who are shamed out of mental health meds end up, they stop taking them because either ashamed or because they're gaining weight or whatever the issue might be. And then a lot of them unfortunately kill themselves.
Yeah,
And
and
so
that's not helpful.
that's not okay. Yeah. And so we
Yeah.
need to understand that serious mental illness, they need the help and medication, and that is okay. At the same time, there are other tools and strategies and therapies that can also help alongside. And so that medication can be a tool for people who are really struggling. But then there's also stories that I'm hearing of people with autoimmune illnesses and illnesses of the body.
Mhm.
I just find it so fascinating. People have found healing in other ways as well, but I have not found one story of serious mental illness without the use of medication. But with medication, people have been able to, lead a fulfilling life and and a happy life. So when we're talking about mental health, so yeah, it's fascinating to me.
Well, yeah, it definitely is because I know like there's a big difference between those that are seriously mentally ill
Yes.
versus those that aren't. And that's where my thing
Yes.
is. I'm like, a person does have to use common sense on that
Yeah.
because it's like depression. Look at your situation.
Yeah.
So much of depression at its core
Hmm.
is who are you surrounding yourself with? If you're around negative people, that's why you've got the depression. If you're not outside, that's why you got depression. What are you eating? What are you watching? What are
Right.
you scrolling?
Yeah.
That's all reasons why you end up with depression, which is obvious. It's an obvious duh. That's why you have it. But
Yeah.
we're talking like the actual serious part of it, where it's something that you can change the other stuff on the outside, but
Hmm.
it's on the inside that you
Yeah.
just can't get past it.
Yes. Yeah. Because when
That's
we're
where I
talking,
want to differentiate on
right,
that one too.
absolutely. Because when we're talking
Yes.
serious, there's some kind of neurochemical imbalance. My daughter at
Mhm.
18, she, everything was going fine in her life at that point, right? I
Mhm.
mean, she didn't, she woke up the next day and she was a completely different person. There was something like, I guess I've never seen psychosis before in my life before that
Okay.
point, and when I saw it, it was a nightmare. It was so extreme, and I know there are people out there and caretakers out there who know what I'm talking about, but it needs to
Mhm.
be talked about more often because people have no clue how extreme it is. But here's the other sad thing. So I'm here in Canada in Vancouver, and you would think that our healthcare would be, at such a great level. If you look at the street, this Hastings Street here in Vancouver,
Okay.
it's packed with homeless people. If you look at the statistics, 50 to 70% of these homeless people, depending on where you gather the statistics from, have some form of mental illness. So what does that mean? It means that these people are not getting the care that they need. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mental
And that
health is
doesn't help
huge.
because isn't Canada the socialism or it's really communism is what it is. I'm I'm just,
Well,
I'm
I
just
mean, we
saying like
have,
that's really what it
um,
is.
I mean, there's good things with the fact that there's a public health care, and then there's
Yeah.
clearly things that need to be improved, right? So,
Well, yeah,
yeah.
that's my first thought because I know like there's people in the US that think that it's great and I'm like
Hmm.
I don't agree with it because it's like yeah, it sounds great on paper,
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of the stuff that's going on, like when they started adding like the assisted suicide, and I'm like, then that's where they're getting their statistics. I know like the statistics have raised from the assisted suicide, even where they're taking the organs and they're harvesting them so that they've got be able to transplant them into other people. And it's
Mm-hmm.
like that's not helping anybody. I don't agree with that part for the assisted suicide at all whatsoever because I'm very much pro-life.
Yeah.
And at the same time, it's like that's a great example of these people, like you just said, that are homeless. They're not getting the care that they need or deserve.
Yeah. And
So then that's
unfortunately,
where they're going to turn
yeah.
to something like that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, some of them are not in their right mind, right? So yeah, they're going to
No.
end up killing themselves. Some of them, if they're going through psychosis and they're on the streets, I'm telling you, it's a bad, bad combination. Because I saw my daughter who was, this articulate A-B student, very well spoken, very kind, become completely someone different, right? She's not the kind of person that would be running away from care or running away from hospitals, staff and things like that. So yeah, I mean, unfortunately, there are some things that do need to be worked on. Even when we were in the hospital, it was overpacked. So this is the downside, right? I
Yeah.
mean, we could probably talk about pros and cons. The fact that everyone gets healthcare is wonderful. I don't think anyone should be discriminated against.
Mm-mm.
Everyone should have access to healthcare. So that part is amazing. However, the overcrowded hospitals and elders being on stretchers in the hallways for days is what I saw every time I would go back with my daughter to the hospital. So there, I do think, I mean, we're getting
Wow.
kind of off track now, but I do think
Well,
that there needs to
no,
be
that
a
helps because
balance, right? Yeah,
well, yeah, no, that
yeah,
helps because that's the whole point, of the podcast in itself too, is because
mm,
I'll probably never go to Canada. When I was a little girl, I wanted to go to Canada. I was saving up the Canadian money, and then with all the things that they've changed, I'm like, oh heck no. You'd have to pay me to want to go there.
I quite love Canada.
No,
I do love
I'm
my
just
country.
yeah. Well, I haven't met
And
the
everything going on in the States right now, I'd have to honestly say I'd rather be here with everything
oh yeah.
going on
They're
in the
yeah,
United States right
I'm
now.
not saying the
But
US ain't
yeah,
I'm not saying the US ain't crazy either right now.
yeah,
There's
yeah,
a whole bucket load of problems there too. But I'm just saying as a whole,
yeah,
when I think of it from when I was a little girl to where it's gone now, and then
yeah,
like even the US, it's like the way it's gone. So I'm like,
yeah,
it's
yeah. It's kind of
Jesus can come back
everywhere.
any day. I'm just saying. Anytime Jesus wants to come, I mean like just come
Yes,
already.
I
But
think he would be welcomed by all faiths.
oh yes. Yes, yes.
Yeah.
But even as a whole, like what you said, like the insurance part alone, that's ridiculous. Like if you're in the hospital waiting, that's where I'm getting at. Like we don't have that issue here,
Yeah.
but
But at the same
that
time,
I've seen.
I don't think that everyone has access to healthcare, right,
No,
in the States. And that to me is also wrong. So what I'm saying is
yeah, it doesn't
there needs
help.
to be some kind of a balance. I don't know what the answer is, but this isn't working.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, and that's all we're both trying to get at the same
Yeah.
time is that they need to figure out something because it's like I've
Hmm.
heard that before from other people that live in Canada about how the health insurance, the ERs are overwhelmed and all of that.
ERs are
And it's like,
overwhelmed. Yes.
why don't they have the regular doctors then? Like, what's different about that? Like here we have doctors that are like the clinics and all that.
Oh,
What's
we have
different?
clinics. Oh, we have clinics. ER is just for critical cases and whatnot, but there's just too many. And so the hospitals are overwhelmed. Yeah.
Oh,
We have clinics as well.
okay, because that's one of the things I'm like I've wondered, but at the same time, it's like when I've been up at the emergency room before, like with one of my own kids, it's one of those things that people come in for the dumbest things. It's not an
Yeah,
emergency.
I do believe that some of those people probably shouldn't be there and
Yeah,
are backing up the system. Yeah.
yeah.
Agreed. Yeah.
That's all I was getting at. Because I'm
Yeah.
like some of the people, I'm like, did you guys even stop and think about what you could have done at home ahead of time before you come to the emergency
Yes.
room? I'm just
Yeah.
saying, like,
That could solve
because
some of the problem for sure.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
it definitely would. But like when you're talking about your daughter and your son having to go through this, like the psychosis and all of that, I've seen it in real life and it is
You have,
horrible.
yeah. Yeah.
Yes, I've seen it and it's horrible. The like how the person is. It's almost like a Dr. and Jekyll and Mr. Hyde type of
Yes.
deal.
Right. And
and you
this is
don't
so
know.
important. Yeah, exactly. And this is so important for people to understand. When
Mhm.
it's an illness, like a serious illness of the mind, this is what happens is you're going to see a completely different version of the person, but that's not really them. And what I want people to understand is that that's the illness and the person is behind that illness and just needs some help. We need some help
Yes.
getting back to that person, because they're ill. That's why it's called
Yep.
mental illness. And I have to tell you that, at their core, both my children are really beautiful human beings, right? And that's what we need to remember. We need to try to remember that there's a human behind that projection that you're seeing. And you'll see a lot of these people, unfortunately, on the streets and whatnot, because when you're not in your right mind, then you're not going to get the care that you need as well. So it kind of works both ways. Yes, you're not
Mhm.
getting the care you need, but at the same time, you're not going to be advocating to get,
No.
because you don't, because if you're in psychosis, you're likely experiencing some kind of delusion and you think
Mhm.
that there are people are out to get you, right? So my
Or that
daughter actually
paranoia.
thought, exactly.
Mhm.
And so you're not going to willingly go to the doctor and get help. And so if you don't have family, right? My kids had us. And so we knew to get them support. And if you don't have that, where are you going to end up? You're going to end up on the streets. And so, yeah, the system is failing. The system is failing. And so it's really important, if you see someone in that state, please remember to see them with compassion and understand that that's not really truly who they are.
Yeah. It's kind of like when people like the behaviors, like what I said earlier about for like blaming, how people want to just blame
Right.
everybody else. And it's like, yeah, you have to look at the person in the mirror because it's your behaviors, but it's separating the person of who they are, like what you've been saying throughout
Yeah.
this time is separating the person from the behavior. Because
Yes.
the behavior is what the illness is doing.
Yes,
It's not the
exactly.
person themselves because it's like
Exactly.
no different than like with my son, some days with his autism, some days it's horrible. And
Mm,
then there's other, and then later he'll be just fine. And it's like, okay, I have to remember this is who he is all the time, is a sweet little boy that I love, not the one with the behaviors, because it's just him not knowing how to handle the
yeah.
behaviors because the
Yeah.
emotions are big. Like
Yeah.
even for so I've
Exactly.
got a brain injury, and even with me
Mm,
having a brain injury, I still struggle with some of the big emotions.
yeah.
Like the anger, the frustration.
Mhm.
They're
Mhm.
lower vibrating energy
Yes.
emotions,
Yeah.
but it's still struggling with those sometimes of, okay, what can I do differently? Because I'm always being mindful of I've got my children that are watching. They're like a little mini
Mhm.
Jesus, I'm just saying. It's like they're constantly watching, and then like some of that stuff comes, not some of it, all of it comes back at some point. And
Mhm.
then when they reflect back, it's like me, most parents would see it like back talking or all this other crap, but it's like he's reflecting back to me in me what I need to change. So I look at it
Mhm.
as a blessing versus as, look, my mom has said, well, you're talking back, you're
Right.
doing this. And it's like,
Right.
no,
Yeah.
they are simply mirroring.
Yeah, and
They're,
your regulation as parents is everything. And the more we regulate
yes.
our own nervous system, that's going to support them to learn to regulate theirs. And autism too, like autism
Hmm.
can be so overwhelming, right? Sensory issues can be so overwhelming. Some kids, it's the light. Some kids, it's the noises, and it's just these stimuli can be so incredibly overwhelming. And the way that I can, I guess, explain it is one time I had this concussion, and I was actually teaching special needs at the time. At
Oh,
my special needs class. Yes, I'm a
yeah.
teacher as well. So I had my special needs classroom, and I ended up with this concussion, and it was a few weeks before the end of school, so I had to go into the building. So I went in with my sunglasses, and I went in with, because when you have a concussion, everything's overwhelming. The
Oh,
lights are
yeah.
overwhelming, the sounds are, and I went in with like like sound canceling
Hmm.
head, phone. And I was like, oh my gosh, this must be how my students feel all the time in the high school, overwhelmed by all the stimuli. And so it gave me a more compassionate perspective of what they must be dealing with, right? And not everybody has
Yeah.
all of that, but it's quite common, right? Everyone
Yeah,
on the
it
spectrum
is.
is different, but it's quite common on the spectrum. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what he's dealt with before. And I'm like, one of the thing that like when he was younger, it's not so much now, because like we don't go to restaurants a ton, but when he was younger, like when we would take him to a restaurant, we'd have to make sure, one, that there wasn't a lot of people there, and then
Yes.
two,
Same.
we would have to take and make sure we weren't by where he could see the street lights change.
Yeah.
And then, because that was another thing, and then we had to make sure where we were sitting at that there wasn't certain people by us, because otherwise he'd get distracted. And then,
Yeah.
like like if we went to a buffet, for example, like to Pizza Ranch, then I would have to go with him, or I'd have to take and go get the food, have someone else watch him, so
Yes.
this way he stays where he needs to, because
Yeah.
he didn't know how to handle that. Because people just come and grab and they don't pay no attention at all whatsoever. They're just in their own little zone, their own
Yeah.
little world, ignorant of other people around them, and it's like he didn't know how to navigate that all.
Yes.
So it's
Yeah.
like that took a lot of like, okay, we're not going to do this because it's too much on us.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's like, well, we call it flying, but we'd have to literally put him like on his stomach, have my arm with him, his head would be up on facing like the ground. I'd have my stomach between, or my hand on his stomach, where the other hand would be
Mm-hmm.
connecting him, so he's held in a grip there, kind of like what you do for an
Yeah.
infant.
Mm-hmm.
And I would just swing him back and forth because it's like he couldn't handle all of the sound from other
Yeah.
people.
Yeah, that's interesting. I used to do that with my son when he was a baby, but I didn't know he was autistic.
I didn't know
Yeah.
he was either until later, but I'm like, you know, there's just was something different, but it's like I just kept,
Mhm.
okay, he's got something else. Okay, now another thing popped up, another thing popped up, and I'm okay, there's something different, but it's like I figured it out on my own, but then that's when I had the doctor, like he's different.
Yeah.
So then that's when we did get the diagnosis, but it's like the whole time, it's like I knew that there was something because just the way he
Mhm.
was acting, but it's like I'm
Yeah.
glad that I worked on his eye contact since birth,
Mhm.
because that was like one of the things. And then like when you talked earlier about the emotions for regulating, and like how when you had like your concussion there, like
Mhm.
everything's louder,
Yeah.
and it's like if you've ever had a migraine, it's the exact same
Yes.
equivalent.
Yeah.
Like that's like
Yeah.
the easiest way to explain it is like you want everybody just to be like,
Yeah.
I've got a
Exactly.
migraine.
Yeah.
Quiet. I can't
Exactly.
handle the lights. I can't handle the sound. But child with
Mhm.
autism are
Yeah.
dealing with that all the
That's
time.
fine. Yeah.
Yes, and then you add like the tags on their clothes or like something really itchy
Yeah.
like wool
Sensory.
on their
Yeah.
body. And
Yes.
it's like
Yeah.
that's why they're acting out. It's they
Yeah.
don't know,
Yeah.
their body just
Exactly.
doesn't know how to handle it.
Yeah, exactly. So, different sensory issues for different kids, but
Yes.
it's often, on the spectrum. And I remember one girl kind of explaining it as with like you're talking about the skin and not being able to have certain fabrics touch the skin, and she talked about it at like it felt like ants running all over her body when she had the
Mm-hmm.
wrong, texture on her skin. So it's just important, I think, to again to understand so that we can and educate so that we can have compassion for everyone. Uh, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and I just see autism honestly as a difference. It's just a difference, but and depending on like for me, the autism isn't like the biggest overriding thing. It's it's unfortunate that oftentimes the autism will be comorbid, meaning it will come with other pieces, whether that's, and it's almost always anxiety for a lot of these kids, or other more, unfortunately with my kids, it's more serious mental health, right?
Yeah.
Or OCD or ODD or ADHD. A lot of these pieces, unfortunately, kind of they merge and then they come together. The autism itself, to me, is just a difference in the wiring in the brain. And that's okay. So it's so interesting because the way I explained it to my daughter, so she was
Mm-hmm.
9 when she was finally diagnosed. So it was later. And we were on this beach in Maui and we're like overlooking the ocean. And she's wearing like this cute little red swimsuit with black stripes. And I looked at her and I had this conversation about how people on the spectrum can be all over the place. Her brother's somewhere in the middle. Some kids might be on the lower end, might not even talk at all. And then there are some people who have gifts. This is the thing we forget. Some people with autism have gifts. And I said, like Albert Einstein. I said, so you know how we went to the doctor recently? Well, the doctor says you have high functioning autism. And her response, oh, I guess I have the good kind then. I'll never forget her response. And it comes right back to what you were talking about earlier. Perspective. Perspective is everything. She never saw the autism as an obstacle or detrimental. And that has not been the hardest piece for her to navigate. For her, it's the mental health that unfortunately, and the health issues that supersede everything else that she's had to go through. But yeah, it's just a different way of looking at life. You can have a lot of these people that are on the spectrum can have gifts because they're able to have fixed interests. And so they're able to, they're able to focus so intensely, some people on the spectrum, that they can develop certain gifts. And that's an amazing and beautiful thing. So we need to be able to see that part of it too, right? It's a difference. That's all it is. Yeah. Yeah.
No, and I like that though too, because I know at the same time we all have gifts. All of us do. Just some
Yes,
have
we
more
do.
gifts than others.
Yes.
And that's one thing I have noticed is like some people get irritated with people like for myself, I have more than one gift. And so people will get irritated with me because I'm like, I have so many different gifts. I don't have just one. But there's a lot of people who just have one gift. But even at that, like you said, like even with the autism, it's like there's a gift that they're able to hone in a little better than somebody possibly who doesn't have it. But it's like they may not have to work as hard at it. It's kind of like that's more of a strength that they're able to use, like the focus as an example.
Right.
Like my son with ADHD, like you wouldn't want him to do certain things. But I've learned certain things he can focus really good on, like drawing. He's really good at that.
Amazing. Yeah.
But it's being able to work with those gifts. So then I'm also wondering, how do you help people make stress their bitch?
Okay, yeah. So we already touched on a few of the different parts of the framework. So we talked about the A, S, and the T, which was the accept and the surrender to those things that you cannot change, transform with your mindset, and you've just talked about gifts. Like you said, everyone has gifts. And for me, I used my poetry as a way to really alchemize and transform my trauma and all the suffering that I was going through with the kids. And I started writing my poems, right? And next thing you know, I had a whole page on Instagram, Mindful Warriors Way. And the next thing you know, I was published. My book is called The Warrior Sayings. But this is something we can all do. You all have a gift, and you can transform your emotions through a gift, whether it's art, whether it's academia, whether it's something, whether it's exercise, something sports related. You all have a gift that you can tune into. But I'm going to backtrack now to the F part of the framework, which is to feel. If we don't allow emotions to pass through us, it will become illness in our body, right? So when we pretend like it's not there, or we pretend like we're going to be superhuman and we don't allow proper processing of emotions, that could become trauma and that could become illness in the body. And Dr. Joe Dispenza talks a lot about how, actually that's part more of the framework of the mindset, but thoughts can become illness and emotions, right? So these feelings can become illness, and feelings can be triggered by thoughts, right? So emotions can trigger that illness, and thoughts can also make you well. Like you said, perspective, right? It goes right back to our initial talk about perspective. Perspective is everything. If you start to shift your thoughts into more positive thoughts and stop, working from a victim mindset, thoughts can, and he does so much research on it that it's amazing. Like your thought can also start to make you well. So having, these negative thoughts and having these negative emotions can turn on the genetic markers in our body for disease, but the opposite is, and the opposite's also possible. So thoughts can literally make you sick because the stress that your thoughts are causing will make you sick. Stress will make you sick, and stress is a killer. But you can do something about it with these strategies, right? And
Yes,
there's
you
so
can.
much more in the program. Like there's so many more strategies of like mindfulness and EFT and meditation. All these kinds of things are kind of woven into the program, but that is basically the core framework, FAST.
Well, I love that because yes, I know like Dr. Joe Dispenza went to the same college that I went for the hypnotherapy.
No
And so
way.
that's,
Yeah.
yeah.
So cool.
So I've been like,
Yeah.
that is awesome, like how much he's dove into it, like the scientific part of it.
Yes, that's what I
Because
love.
like
I
even
love the
with heart
science.
math and like all the different areas that I've been still going in that same area in a way.
Yeah.
But it's so amazing is how they have these studies
Mm-hmm.
of how much the mind affects the body. Because like you said, it is a
Right.
machine. The body
Yeah.
is. But people are like, well, it's not a machine. It's, this, that. And it's like, no, it's very much a machine. Because when you're sick, like one example I've done with my kids, it works amazing, is like when we've had the cold or something, I'm like, I'm healthy. Or like when we had the
Mm-hmm.
flu
Yeah.
and influenza. Did it look like we were healthy? Absolutely not. However, we're like, I am healthy. I am wealthy. I
Yeah.
am, I'm healthy. I'm feeling better. Like that's what I kept telling the kids, and they kept telling themselves that, and they were able to turn it around so much faster.
Yeah, words are powerful because
Yes.
everything's energy, right? I mean, everything looks material, but we know scientifically that everything can be broken down into particles, molecules, atoms. Well, what is that? That's energy. And
Hmm.
words are energy. And so the words you say to yourself, they matter. They matter because they can change matter. So,
Yes.
yeah, it's so powerful what we say to ourselves, and most of us are, we're basically living, most of us, from this really subconscious level of programming where we don't even realize what the script is that's running our life. And the script that's running our life is negative and it's victim mindset. And we don't even realize how much grief we're creating for ourselves in that state. And when you flip that script and you take control and you let your mind be your servant instead of your
Yep.
master, then you start to create the powerful, affirmations like you're talking about. And when you do that, like you start to see change because everything is energy, including your thought. You're putting
Yes.
positive energy into the world. Yeah.
And that's amazing that they're even, I don't know, I'm pretty sure it was Joe Dispenza that has like this thing where he did if I remember right, it had to have been him or Bruce Limpton, either him or Dr. Bruce Limpton did a study like with the mind of how they're able to measure like the thought energy. Like
Oh,
where I've seen a
interesting.
YouTube video of it. I think I'm not 100%
It,
sure.
yeah,
It was
I don't think it
one of
was
those
Dr.
two.
Joe Dispenza. Must have been the other doctor you're talking about.
Dr. Bruce
Yeah,
Limpton.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
because I know it's like one of them that did it, but I seen this where we're able to measure the thought energy because like you could measure it from the heart. That's
Hmm.
what I love, and like they've got like the biofeedback devices,
Yes, they
or
do.
like the heart math
Yeah,
one. That that's what I've noticed, like
yeah.
that has the heart coherence in it. And
Yes,
it's like
I
you're
was gonna
able to
say, yeah,
see, and it's like
yeah,
it's amazing because it's like one of the things that
yeah.
I've used. I actually got mine right next to me
And when
because I
you're,
haven't used it yet.
oh, what is that?
This one is the heart math. It's a biofeedback device.
Oh,
But you clip it to
amazing.
your ear,
Yeah,
and then on the heart math app, this will tell me my heart coherence. So it's using my
amazing.
breathing, and it's
Mm-hmm.
also using my mind. So like my thoughts and my breathing
Mm-hmm.
have like I can see on the screen if I believe something that I'm telling myself or not. And
Yeah.
it's really, really weird, but it's like before you even have the thought, it's like it can change. And then you know like where you're at in your stress levels and all of that with the heart math tool. But I'm like, that's just an example of a biofeedback
Yes.
device
Yes.
that's telling you we can
Mm-hmm.
measure your thought energy. Because that's
Absolutely.
exactly what you were just talking about.
Yes, exactly. And everything's
It's
connected, right?
energy.
So your heart energy and your heart coherence is connected to your mind coherence. And if you really want to delve into
Yes.
more of that, like Dr. Joe Dispenza is amazing with all his research behind that.
Yeah, and that's I love what you're doing though. That is
Thank
extremely
you.
helpful. So like what would you say to like the parents out there that maybe that are dealing with their child on the spectrum or they're dealing with these really hard issues with the mental health and
Hmm.
they're just struggling. They don't know what to do for
Hmm.
themselves. Like
Yeah.
they may think that it's selfish to take care of
No.
yourself.
Yeah, and it's not selfish because when you heal yourself, there's a ripple effect, right? And the more healed you are and the better you are, the more that energy is gonna affect your children, right? So it's so important that you also take care of yourself. Yeah, no, it's not selfishness at all. Self-care it's needed, it's necessary. Yeah.
I was
So
gonna ask, too, in that for like the self-care is like for me, all my kids, they're little. The oldest is 10, the youngest is 2 months.
mhm,
Now, like for me, I still make the self-care a priority,
mhm,
but at the same time, I don't know if you grew up or I grew up that as a parent, you didn't do the self-care. You made sure your children were taken care of first. So
mhm.
sometimes I still get the voice in my head that's like from my mom that I need to take care of my kids first.
Right.
That it's
Right.
selfish if I take care of me. And
Yeah.
I'm flipping that
Right.
constantly.
And
I
so am
gotta take
I.
care of me.
Yeah. And I have to really, I guess, clarify something. So
Mhm.
self-care doesn't mean that you make yourself better than anyone, right? So
Mm-mm.
self-care doesn't mean that, and this is the thing, that a lot of people fall into this narcissistic kind of self-love where they think that that means, okay, I'm better than others, my needs matter more. It simply means that you are an equal to your children, that you all matter. It just means that you matter too, because a lot of women, unfortunately, that's what we do. We burn out. We give, and then we deplete ourselves, and then we have nothing left, right? But if you're going to operate from that state, you're going to create illness in your body,
That's
right?
as
And how
yeah.
how good are you for your family or for anyone else, or even yourself if you're now ill and you created an illness, right? It's so important
Even
to take
something
care of
like a
yourself,
cold. That's why I'm like,
right?
I've been
Yeah.
wondering, I'm like, why in the world is everybody else more
Mhm.
healthier than I
Yeah.
am? And
Yeah.
I'm like, well, gee, because I've been the one that's doing all the work. I'm the one, doing all this other stuff. And I'm like, okay, something has to change because, like you said,
Mhm.
you create the sickness. So,
Yeah.
no.
Yeah.
And I
Exactly.
appreciate, like everything that you've brought up and that we've been talking about in this because this is extremely helpful. So, what's the best way for audience to get in contact with you?
Yeah, so I do have I have two Instagram sites. I have Mindful Warriors Way and Mothers of Mental Health, or you could just Google Mindful Warriors Way and my website comes up from Kajabi.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you so much, and I'm sure our audience did as well.
Thank you so much.
As always, I just want to thank you for your time and energy while listening to today's episode of Healing for the Soul podcast. Be sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe to Healing for the Soul podcast wherever you get your downloads, you're listening to your podcasts, and keep coming back for more episodes. Thank you, everyone, for your time and your energy while listening to today's episode of Healing for the Soul podcast, which also can be found on YouTube.